Welcome to another part of the end of year ranking, and today we are ranking powders, and we actually have to divide the video in three different topics because I'm going to rank my under eye setting powder, my face setting powder, and then the finishing powder. And yes, there is a difference. So let's start with under eye, and on the 10th place, I think that's not a surprise, is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake and Snatch. That is the pressed version of her loose powders, the Easy Bake ones. And although I did use it quite a bit, I by the way have the shade Cherry Blossom Cake, it's just not a good powder. It is so freaking dry. The little applicator thing that comes in here, this velvet puff, whatever that is supposed to be, is just pure garbage and bullshit. It looks just super dry. I mean, it stays on. I don't know if you've seen it. If you follow me on Instagram, I did document the first wear on the Instagram stories, and my whole face wore off after it was a super long day. I had my makeup on for 16, 17 hours. Everything has worn off besides this under eye area. That was still going strong. Other than that, it's just not good, and save your money and get something else. Number 9, maybe a surprise for a lot of body, but the Laura Mercier, what exactly is it called? The Secret Brightening Powder for the under eyes is just a very mediocre powder. I'm sorry, I don't get the hype around this. It is a nice loose powder, it's super fine. It's like when you open it, you are already coated in powder. I love the tiny light reflecting specks in it that makes it super brightening. But overall, it's just a very generic powder. I don't get the hype train, and I also would not repurchase this at all. Number 8 is a powder that will truly strip down your credit card, because the Westman Atelier Vital Press Skincare Powder, I have the shade Pink Bubble still left. I used up the translucent one in a Project Pan that I did this year, and is it a good powder? Yes. I do use it as under eye powder actually, because it has only 5 grams and you have to pay 80 money for this. This is actually supposed to be not used on the under eyes, but I think it works great. I like it more than the other two, of course, but since this is so expensive, I don't see the value. It's not magically erasing your fine lines, magically, I don't know, erasing all the pores. It's a good powder, way too expensive for what you get. Not that I do have kind of a love for pink powders, but the Danessa Myricks Evolution setting powder in the pink shade that came out this year made it to number 7. This is a awesome under eye setting powder. My personal problem with this is it is a bit too dry. Compared to the other loose setting powders that I'm showing you in this ranking, this is just very dry, and depending on how my under eyes are doing that day, they can look extra dry with this powder. It's good, yes, but it's nothing that I can use every day. Number 6, who would have thought? The Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Brightening Flawless Finish Powder. I don't know if you saw that in this year's videos in general. The regular version with the different shades, I hate. It's awful. But the brightening version is really good. It's not stark white whitening or brightening, even though it looks like that. It is a saddle sheen. I love that. It is such an amazing pressed under eye setting powder. I would totally repurchase this. Number 5 is the Rare Beauty Always an Optimist Loose Powder. When this came out, I lost my mind over it. I still want to have the loose powder brush, but we still don't have that here in Germany, even though this has been out for 2 years at this point. I do have the shade Light, which has the slightest pink tint going on, and I really enjoy it. It's such a smoothing under eye setting powder. Absolutely stunning, but the other 4 that we are going to mention are just a tad bit better. If I had to rank my powders for the most beautiful packaging, this one would be number 1. This is the Flower Nose, what exactly is it called? The Music Box Loose Setting Powder from the Swan Ballet collection. I do have the shade 02, which is a lavender shade, and this is an amazing powder. This won my heart the moment that I used it the first time, and then I could not put it down for a whole 1.5 weeks. Used it every single day. I tested it with nearly every concealer that I own. Not all of them, but most of them now. And it's just wonderful. It is such a beautiful powder. But the thing is, the other 3 powders that we have to talk in the top 3 under eye powder, First of all, I used all of them a bit longer, besides number one. And second of all, the next two we are going to talk about, they're just a tad bit better. You know, we're just talking about this much better. It's not like this, like with the Westman Atelier one. It's just like this. So number three, Huda Beauty Easy Bake Loose Bake and Setting Powder. I don't bake, I just use it as setting powder. And this is specifically the shade Sugar Cookie. I love this when my circles are super dark and even a corrector cannot correct that darkness. This on top is so brightening, it will just erase every darkness in your skin. Everything. I really enjoy this. I personally don't have a problem with the scent of these powders. I actually enjoy the scent, but I know a lot of people don't like it. But in general, this is a beautiful powder and I highly recommend it. On second place, we actually have another Huda Beauty powder, but this is now the shade Cherry Blossom. Same things as with the Sugar Cookie powder, but I just like the pink shade more than the white one. And my favorite under eye setting powder, and who would have thought that this is going to happen, the Dior Forever Cushion Powder. I don't know where this is a cushion, maybe because of the packaging, because inside you just have a like gnat on top of the powder. This is also a lavender shade and I'm not really sure. I think this is permanent in their line, but the packaging is just the like this year's holiday packaging, even though this looks more like spring than anything else. But this powder, amazing. The color is a bit more subtle compared to the lavender powder from Flower Nose, but the way this smooths everything, the way it works with every single concealer that I own, like I tested it now with every single concealer that I own, it's just amazeballs. I fell head over heels in love with this powder after my friend Danielle recommended it to me because she was like, oh, I think you're gonna like this. And the lavender tint in this and in the Flower Nose one is not as prominent as you might think. It has just beautiful brightening capacities without looking like a white brightening powder, if that makes sense. So this, my favorite under eye setting powder of the year. Now let's talk about the face setting powders. And we're starting at number 13 with actually the Sigma Soft Focus. This survived my declutter this year, but I don't know what exactly it is. It is good. I like the way it blurs, but it's just nothing overwhelmingly good. It's not a repurchase worthy item. It's something that I might use up. Maybe it will get decluttered at some point. It's just not special. By the way, I do wear the shade Vanilla Bean because they don't have a translucent one and I think it's also a bit too yellow for me. Maybe that's why this is so off-putting. And number 12, and that might surprise you, the Vive Modern Radiance Setting Powder. No, Modern Perfector Powder. We have a situation going on here. The thing is, I think this is a good setting powder for the face, but this is very mediocre. I am not impressed by this, and actually I currently only use it to set my primer on the eyes. It is nice, I will use it up, and I like it more than the Sigma one, but again, not repurchase worthy. Number 12, again, Laura Mercier. I don't think that these powders are good, besides one that we are going to talk in another number. But this is the classic translucent loose setting powder. Why is this so hyped up? I mean, it has been around for ages now and it's like a staple in all makeup shops. I like it enough to not declutter it. I like it more than the other two, but still, it's a pot of mediocreness. And I think you will not be disappointed when you buy this, but it's also not a powder where you would be like, influencer gasping or fist biting yourself. Number 10, just slightly better than the Laura Mercier one, is the Haus Labs Bio Blurring Loose Setting Powder. I think this is a very good powder. It works with all of my foundations so far, but something is just in there that makes me not like it as much as the following ones. Again, it's a nice mediocre powder. It's nothing that you might be disappointed in. By the way, I removed the net on top because I hate the nets. I think the shade is a bit off-putting, and what is really, really confusing, I don't know if you can tell, but I do have little hardened balls throughout the powder. I don't know what is causing this. I can press them down, but they're like forming and getting bigger the more I shake it. Like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. If it's like from moisture that goes into the powder when I use my brush or when I use a powder puff, but I had these little balls even before I removed the net. So it was not like that the sifter or the net on top does prevent that from happening. My main problem is it's just too expensive for what it is. Like this powder I think sells around 46, 45 euro. And for that price, I just expect to be blown away. It's not bad at all, it's just too expensive. Number 9, who would have thought the glowish brightening, no, luminous pressed powder. I always mess up those names. This is my only like luminous pressed powder for setting the face. I do have finishing powders that are luminous, but this one is a really, really good one. I would have ranked this much, much higher if the shade would match. My problem is, I don't know if you can tell, let me open that real quick. It has a weird undertone. I said in the video that I think this has a very pinkish undertone, but now that I look at it, it's like yellow with a pink shift. Does that make even sense? And this is the shade 00 Porcelain, and you might think, oh, this is a nice light powder. It's not. So I really, really have to watch out for the foundation that I use with this powder because otherwise it will look ridiculous. Number 8 is the RCMA No Color Powder. I think this bad boy has been in the makeup shelves for 50 years now. I don't know, don't quote me on that. Did not do research, but it's a really good powder. The reason why I ranked this at number 8, technically this could have been a number 1 powder because this is just so basic that it just fulfills all the needs. But I hate this packaging. I hate this elongated bottle because you cannot use this without creating a mess. I have to take an extra tray, put it in that tray, and then use my brush in it because I cannot even put this into the cap here because my brush is not going to fit in the cap. And I mean, look at this, how much powder already collected in the top, on top of the sifter is like ridiculous. So the next time I'm using this will be a big, big mess. Can't wait for that. Number 7, and that makes me a bit sad because I wanted to love this more, but I just don't. The new Milk Makeup Pore Eclipse Powder. You know, I'm a big, big fan of the primer. When the powder was available in Germany, I immediately purchased it. It is a nice powder. I like this powder, but it's not as good as I thought it might be. That is just my problem. I love the way this sets my face. I think my makeup holds on quite long with this. And it's not like pore eclipsing, you know, it's like not blurring or what, but it's very mattifying. So if you want to just tone down the shine of your face, I think this is also a nice touch-up powder if you use something like that. Kind of like this. And the award for the most finely milled powder in this world goes to the new MAC Blur and Set. This is so fine, you can't even see it on the brush or powder puff, depending what you use. But I love this powder. It is so freaking amazing. I thought I would like the Pore Eclipse more than the MAC one, but I just fell in love with MAC one. The other one are just a bit better, but you know what it is. I think MAC just created a wonderful powder, and if there is just one strength with MAC Cosmetics, it's their complexion products. And this powder is a beautiful, loose Studio Fix powder. You know, the whole Studio Fix line is like very long wear focused, and this really helps with it. And it's so fine, you can't detect that anywhere. Besides the air, because as soon as you open it, it's like sneezing out. And the award for the most underrated powder goes to number 5. This is the Rodial Glass Skin Powder. If you are looking for a luminous setting powder that is not pressed, the Rodial Glass Powder is it. I mean, the name is a bit confusing because it kind of implies that there are glass shards in there, but I promise you there aren't. In general, Rodial, in my opinion, is a very underrated brand. I see so many products from them that I never tried, but I want to, but I don't want to spend the money. Currently, you know, no buy, low buy things, but I'm very, very happy that I pulled the trigger for the glass powder. And I think I paid around like 30 bucks and I get 18 grams of product. Like that's a nice amount of setting powder. And it also has nice setting abilities. And as I said, the like glass in the glass powder are little tiny light reflecting specks. But you have to take like magnifying glasses to really see them. It's such a subtle glow that is going on. It's just a nice brightening powder. Number three, I really had to think about, do I put this at 2 or 3, but I decided to go for 3 because of the price point. The Clay the Poet Translucent Setting Powder, this motherfucker costs you 130 euro. It is so freaking expensive that I don't know if I can ever repurchase this. Props for having refills. So for $100 only, you can get a refill for this powder and keep this packaging. I mean, you get 26 grams, but even 26 grams for 100 or 130 euro is just still a lot of money. But this is an amazing powder. It smells like an old lady. I'm not going to lie to you, but it is so good. This does everything that I want a powder to do. And if it was not that expensive, it would have been in the second place because, to be honest, my favorite face powder, nobody can beat. But at number 2, a cult classic, the Givenchy Prism Libre powder. I just love these. I think this 4-color technique that is basically for brightening, correcting and stuff works wonderful since none of these colors are very punchy in your face. When you mix them together, you end up with just a beautiful powder that puts on a nice setting layer on your face without feeling heavy. The only thing I don't like about this powder is actually the packaging. I hate the 4 compartments and that you have to be super careful with putting them out so you have an equal amount of powder from every of these cores in here. But other than that, I think everybody should have this in their collection. And number 1 is a powder I also think everybody should have in their collection, but sadly it's discontinued. And this is the powder that I was talking about from Milk Makeup. This is the Milk Makeup Blur and Set Powder, and this was their matte loose setting powder before the pore eclipse. Do you see this container? I think this powder was sold for around 25 euro here in Germany, and you got 25 grams of product. When I heard that they will discontinuing this powder, I actually bought a backup. So I do have still this. I mean, it's nicely used up, but I also do have a full backup because this is the best setting powder in this world. Mattifying without looking dry, not heavy, setting down everything you want, kind of glowy, like in a very natural way, as I said, matte and not dry, and beautiful wearing time. Nothing will ever beat this powder. Quote me on that for the next year's ranking. And all we have left now are the finishing powders. You know, I love to use a finishing powder after everything is done, just to kind of put everything together. And at number 4, we have the Makeup Forever Twist and Light powder. It's like the Prism Libre powder. So you have 1, 2, 3, wait, 1, is it 4? 3. It's a 3 different compartments. You have a pink, a blue, and a yellow powder. And what you do is you twist the packaging, then you get some powder in here, and then you can use that on your face. So why is this not a setting powder? First of all, this is really a finishing powder. I think it's also marketed as finishing powder. And this has so much glitter to it, you cannot use it as a concentrated setting powder. But if you use it, I like to use it with a stippling brush like this. As finishing powder, you distribute this like glitter very fine on the face, and you end up with one of the most beautiful glows you've ever seen. Because of the hassle you have to go through to get this beautiful glow, this is just number 4. Number 3 is a matte finishing powder, and this is the Sisley Blur Expert. This came out last year for the Americans, I think, because in Germany, this powder has been around for much longer, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong or I'm mixing that up with something else. But this is basically just a matte finishing powder. You apply this after everything is done to just mattify the face a bit more. What I like about this powder is the way that it smooths and blurs. So if you have kind of a pore problem going on, or you're not happy with the way your pores look, this powder helps. What I don't like is, and I don't know if you can tell, the surface of this powder is very smooth. You get nearly no color payoff with your brush. You really have to scratch it, or I just couldn't find the right brush to use it with. I used to use it with very soft, flimsy angled brushes because I like to use finishing powders with that type of brushes. But I'm now using the the limited edition one that came out for their 100,000 review thing. That works a bit. That works a bit better. But you know, the texture is kind of some Charlotte Tilbury powders in their face palettes, where you have to put a bit more effort to get a good color payoff. But once you have that color payoff, it's beautiful. And it's the same with this one. Number 2 is the Hourglass Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder. But this is specifically the shade Moodlight. This, I don't know what this is referring to, if this is like candlelight, but I think there is a candle and glow shade. It doesn't matter. Moodlight is one of the best shades if you have a pale complexion like me. The thing is just why this is number 2 and not number 1. I don't want to have that glow all the time. While with my number 1 powder, I can wear this with every look. I can wear this on every occasion. I can do this with every mood. And number 1, the best finishing powder ever to exist, the best blurring powder ever to exist, is the Chantecaille Perfect Blur Powder. My only critique with this powder is actually the shade, because you only have, I think, a light medium and a medium dark. And as you can tell, light medium looks quite yellow. But since I picked this up with this specific Refer brush, it's very soft in application. And then I just swipe it on the forehead and the like front area, a bit on the chin and underneath the contour, and you end up with the most blurred, mattified, without being dried look ever on this planet. Okay, so there you have it. These are my rankings of all the different powder types that I own. Tell me now in the comments down below, what is your favorite powder? It doesn't matter if under eye or face, or if you even use finishing powder. Just tell me what is your favorite. Maybe I did miss out with something and I can try it maybe next year. So thank you. Don't forget to check out the info box. And of course you should subscribe, because we're doing Ellamas. That means you get every day a video. It's very exhausting, but I just love doing it. So thank you, and I will see you tomorrow.